It was one of those gray, late summer evenings where the air felt too still. I'd just gotten back from my run, 6 miles, steady pace, the same loop I always take around the park. I still had my earbuds in, half listening to a podcast about some guy who disappeared off a hiking trail in the Pacific Northwest. I was zoning out, already thinking about my own trip coming up in a couple weeks. Oregon. I was gonna drive up the coast solo, just me and a tent and some space to breathe. I needed that. When I got inside, I headed straight to the fridge and grabbed a bottle of water. The kitchen was dim. Ashley must have turned off the lights when the sun went down, just leaving the glow from the living room TV. That's when I heard her voice. I almost didn't register it at first. She was talking to someone, laughing a little. I figured she was on the phone with Courtney or Mia, one of her usual go-to friends. I didn't think anything of it. But as I twisted the cap off the water and stepped closer to the hallway, a sentence cut through the air, clear as glass. I just can't stand him anymore. My hand froze midair. I couldn't see her from where I was standing, but I could hear her, flat, casual, like she was talking about a dress she didn't like. The kind of tone people use when they're done pretending to care. Her voice had that lazy kind of venom in it, like she'd been holding this in and it finally spilled out with a laugh. "No, seriously," she said, pausing to sip something. I could hear the clink of ice. "She's just so all the time. Like a dog that never leaves the room. Always waiting for a treat." Then laughter. Hers and whoever was on the other end of the line. It was light, kind of dismissive, like they were both in on the joke. I stood perfectly still, water bottle still in my hand, listening with this horrible pressure building behind my eyes. "Yeah, well," she continued, "at least I'll have this weekend to breathe. I swear, if I have to hear about that stupid Oregon trip one more time." That was enough. I set the water bottle down on the counter, quietly. I don't even think she heard me. My heart was thudding in my ears, drowning out whatever else she was saying. The worst part? It wasn't what she said. It was how she said it. Like she was tired of me. Like I was a thing she had to explain away. Something she used to want, but now couldn't even tolerate being around. I didn't say anything. I didn't walk into the living room. I didn't ask her who she was talking to or what she meant. I didn't ask if the weekend with Courtney was really just that. Some instinct deeper than logic told me, don't give her a reason to lie. Don't give her a stage. Instead, I walked upstairs. No one heard my footsteps. Not her, not the voice on the speakerphone. I grabbed my keys from the nightstand. My phone was on the charger. I didn't take it. I didn't even glance at it. Whatever texts, photos, or social media I might have scrolled through to make sense of what I heard, I didn't want it. I didn't want proof. Her words were proof. I didn't pack a bag. Not even a sweatshirt. Just walked out the door like I was stepping out for a drive. I remember locking it behind me, out of habit, which felt absurd even in the moment. Like locking the door mattered anymore. The sky had turned that purplish shade of blue that makes everything look too quiet. I didn't even know where I was going. I just knew I couldn't be in that house anymore. Not with her voice echoing in my head. It was strange. No anger, no shouting. I'd always thought that if this kind of thing ever happened to me, I'd rage. Confront. Demand an explanation. But when it came down to it, there was nothing to fight for. Her words had already told me everything. I was a weight. An inconvenience. A man she couldn't even stand to be around. Maybe I should have stayed and asked questions. Maybe I should have given her a chance to explain. But I knew, really knew, this wasn't some one-time slip of the tongue. This was how she really felt. And maybe she'd felt that way for a long time. What killed me most was how normal everything had felt, right up until it didn't. We'd had dinner together 2 nights ago. Watched a dumb show we both hated but couldn't stop watching. She kissed me goodnight. Made plans to grab coffee this weekend. Nothing had cracked on the surface. But underneath, I guess the rot had been there for a while. I just hadn't seen it. I drove until my legs cramped, until I hit a gas station off the highway and just sat there for a while in the parking lot, engine running. I stared through the windshield, watching moths beat their wings against the fluorescent lights, and wondered how long it had been since she stopped loving me. Or maybe this was never love at all. That night, I turned off my phone for good. I erased my social media accounts, canceled my cards, changed the password on my email, and then deleted the account entirely. I didn't want her finding me. I didn't want anyone finding me. Not yet. I wanted the silence. Because silence, unlike people, doesn't lie. At first, she probably thought I was being dramatic. Maybe she even rolled her eyes. I can imagine her pacing the house, waiting for the door to open and for me to come back so we could argue like normal. Maybe she rehearsed a speech, something about how I overreacted or misunderstood. Maybe she planned to tell me she was just venting to a friend. That it didn't mean anything. That she loved me. That I was imagining things. But I didn't come back. Not that night. Not the next day. Not ever. The first 24 hours, I bet she told herself I was trying to make a point. The second day, I'm sure it shifted. Confusion turned into concern. I can picture her texting me, maybe calling a few times. No response. The read receipts must have haunted her. When they disappeared entirely, that probably scared her more. By the third day, she'd called my parents. They wouldn't know anything. I hadn't told them where I was going. I just slipped out of my life like a ghost. She called my friends. None of them had heard from me either. Not yet, anyway. I imagine that's when panic started to set in. She even called the hospitals. The house must have started to feel wrong. Like it was holding its breath. My shoes were still by the door. My coat still on the hook. My wallet still on the nightstand. I hadn't packed anything. Not a shirt. Not even a toothbrush. Just gone. That guitar she bought me 2 Christmases ago? Still propped in the corner of the den, slightly out of tune. I used to play it almost every night. I wonder when she first noticed how silent it was without those strings humming low under my fingers. It's weird how the absence of someone can start to feel more like a presence. Louder than when they were actually there. The TV stayed off. The dishes sat clean in the rack. No noise of drawers opening or cabinets closing. No fridge door swinging open at 2 a.m. when I couldn't sleep. Just stillness. She must have walked around the house looking for signs. Trying to decode the silence. But there was nothing to decode. No clues. No trail. Just a void. And it was hers now. I didn't delete everything immediately. That part came gradually. But I made sure to vanish from the places that mattered. Social media, email, my shared calendar. The Oregon trip was still booked under my name. She probably checked. I didn't cancel it. Didn't need to. I wouldn't be using it. I didn't leave a note. That wasn't out of spite. It was because I didn't owe her one. Her words had already filled in every blank. She made the story. I just gave it an ending. When she finally reported me missing, the cops shrugged. No crime. No signs of struggle. No foul play. Just a man who had, as far as they could tell, walked out of his own life. One officer suggested maybe I'd had a mental break. Another guessed I was cheating. Both were wrong, but I bet the irony of that wasn't lost on her. She left me voicemails. The first few were cautious. Polite. Hey babe, can you just call me back? I'm getting a little worried. That sort of thing. Then they turned pleading. Apologetic. Full of I'm sorry's and I didn't mean it's and let's talk. She must have thought if she just said the right combination of words, I'd reappear like a magic trick. I never listened past the first few seconds. Because this wasn't about punishment. I wasn't trying to hurt her. I was just done. It's strange how quickly a house turns into a stranger when only one heartbeat is left inside it. I'd built a life there. Painted walls. Fixed sinks. Assembled IKEA furniture through clenched teeth. But once I was gone, it all became background noise for her regret. I don't know what she told people at first. Probably that we had a fight. That I needed space. That I was staying with a friend. Something benign and temporary. Something she could manage. But eventually, the truth had to creep in. People started asking questions. She stopped having answers. I stopped being someone who was late coming home, and started being someone who wasn't coming home at all. I imagined her sitting on our bed, scrolling through old photos, wondering what the hell she'd done. Replaying the conversation she had on the phone that night, trying to remember exactly what she said. Whether it was that bad. Whether she meant it. Whether she deserved this. She did. Maybe not in some cosmic justice kind of way, but in a real-world way. In a you can't treat someone like that and expect them to stay kind of way. And I stayed for a long time. Stayed when I felt invisible. Stayed when her eyes glazed over every time I talked about things that mattered to me. Stayed when her laughter came easier with strangers than it ever did at home. Stayed through the boredom, the coldness, the silences that weren't peaceful. They were just vacant. But the moment I heard her voice that night, heard how small and pathetic I sounded in her world, something broke. Not loudly. Quietly. Finally. It was a strange kind of freedom, knowing I'd never have to ask for her affection again. Never have to wonder if I was enough. Never have to shrink myself down to fit the little space she'd decided was all I deserved. I left that space behind. And in its place, I left the silence. The kind that wraps around you in the dark. The kind that doesn't just linger, it presses in. It demands attention. It forces you to sit with it. To listen to every echo of your own voice. And hers. Weeks passed. Time started to get weird for her. Elastic, slippery. Sometimes she'd sit on the couch thinking it had only been a few minutes, only to look up and realize it was dark outside. Other times, whole days passed and she couldn't remember doing anything besides opening and closing drawers, checking her phone, pacing from the bedroom to the kitchen and back again. She still hadn't heard from me. She tried everything, texted, called, emailed, DM'd every friend she thought I might have reached out to. But no one had seen me. Or if they had, they weren't saying anything. Even my mom was tight-lipped. Ashley told her I was missing, told her she was worried sick, and my mom just said, "He'll come back if he wants to." That was it. Ashley must have felt the ground shifting under her by then. At first, it had just been me gone, but now the silence was spreading. People stopped replying. Her texts got shorter responses. Some not at all. The group chat with her girlfriends went quiet. Courtney kept her distance. The same friends who used to gas her up with heart emojis and "you deserve better" were suddenly too busy to meet for drinks. She didn't understand why, until she saw the email. It came from an anonymous address. No subject line. Just a link to an audio file. She played it. It was her. Her voice. That conversation from the living room the night I left. Captured in full, every syllable, every laugh. "I just can't stand him anymore. He's like a dog waiting for a treat. At least I'll have the weekend to breathe." It was all there. Every cutting word. The recording had been passed around, emailed, forwarded, whispered about. I hadn't just disappeared. I'd left the truth behind like a calling card. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't burn her clothes or slash her tires or scream at her on the sidewalk. I didn't have to. All I did was make sure she heard herself. And now everyone else had heard her too. There wasn't any dramatic caption or context. Just her voice, echoing like a ghost through inboxes and phones and probably office break rooms. Maybe I sent it. Maybe someone else did. Honestly, doesn't matter. People always show you who they are. I just held up the mirror. When she saw Mark, my old friend, at the grocery store, he looked straight through her. Didn't even nod. Just kept walking, like she was a stranger. That one hit hard. I know it did. Mark used to come over for game nights, used to call her Ash, like they were family. And now he couldn't even look her in the eye. That's when the reality started to sink in. She hadn't just lost me. She'd lost the illusion. The curated little world she'd spent years building. Couple selfies, anniversary dinners, brunch with friends, all of it started crumbling. Not because I exposed some deep, shameful secret, but because I didn't. I just let her words live on their own. And that was enough. She started calling me names in her head, I'm sure. Manipulative. Petty. Cruel. The irony of that probably never occurred to her, that after years of emotional distance, that one night, she was the one who spoke honestly. And that truth was what wrecked her. I imagine she checked her email obsessively after that, trying to trace where it came from. Maybe even called a lawyer. Tried to find a way to control the damage. But how do you control something like that? How do you tell people not to believe what they heard with their own ears? She tried damage control, I bet. Texted a few people from her side of the friend group. Claimed I must have bugged the house. That it was out of context. That I was unstable. desperate. But none of it stuck. Because the words didn't need context. They weren't edited. They weren't taken from a fight. They were just her. The worst part? The more she tried to explain, the worse it sounded. That's how it works when no one's listening anymore. When the spotlight turns cold and the crowd starts to walk away. I didn't watch it all unfold in real time. But I heard enough. People told me things, unprompted. Quiet messages. Side conversations. A friend of a friend letting me know she'd shown up to Courtney's birthday party and left early. Didn't say much. Looked tired. She probably was. Living in that house without me, she must have started to feel it, the weight of the silence. It wasn't just about me not being there to fill the air. It was what took my place. The quiet reminders. The question that lingered every time her phone lit up and it wasn't me. She might have scrolled through old photos. Looked at vacations, birthdays, little selfies we took in bed on lazy Sundays. Tried to see if there was some point in time where things shifted, where I became someone she could speak about like that. But she wouldn't find it. Because the truth is, it wasn't sudden. She just got comfortable. She thought I'd always be there. Thought I'd take it. Swallow it. Pretend not to notice how far away her love had gone. And maybe I would've. If not for that one night. That one slip. That one unfiltered moment of her thinking I wasn't listening. But I was. And so was everyone else. Months went by. The seasons changed. Leaves fell, then snow, then came the soggy thaw of early spring. And still, I didn't go back. Then one day, a letter showed up on her doorstep. No return address. Just her name written in the middle of the envelope, like the universe had quietly dropped it there. Inside was a single piece of paper. Not typed. Handwritten. Just one sentence. I heard everything. That was it. No signature. No questions. No goodbye. She read it standing in the kitchen, sunlight bleeding in through the window blinds, dust hanging in the air like the ghosts of things she used to ignore. Her hand trembled, and for a moment she thought she might throw it away, pretend it didn't matter. But the truth was, it mattered more than anything. That one line crushed more than any argument ever could. Because she knew. There was no coming back from that kind of silence. Not the physical kind. The knowing kind. The kind that sits in your chest and never leaves. After that, she stopped trying to explain things to people. No more damage control. No more messages to mutual friends. No more half-hearted, I don't know what happened, stories. Everyone already knew. Or worse, had stopped caring. She tried to move on. I don't know how hard she tried, but I know she tried. She went on dates. I heard about one, some guy from her gym. Generic name. Looked good in a button-up. They went to dinner, maybe saw a movie. She smiled, laughed at the right times. Maybe even pretended it was something new. Something hopeful. But I also know how the night ended. Her walking back into the same house. Alone. Sitting on the edge of the bed we used to share. Staring at her phone. Opening old text threads. Our anniversary pictures still saved in her favorites album, no matter how many times she swiped past them. Because the silence I left behind wasn't just the absence of my voice. It was the echo of hers. The recording. The memory. That version of herself she couldn't delete or deny. The one she never expected to be played back. The one that made everything else ring hollow. And me? I didn't rebuild right away. Not like in the movies where the guy finds himself in the wilderness and everything gets fixed with a beard and a journal. It took time. I changed my name, not legally, just in the places that mattered. Started over somewhere no one asked questions. Picked a town with mountains and fog and trees that whispered when the wind moved through them. I worked a quiet job at a ranger station, hours spent with maps and trail logs, guiding tourists and checking weather patterns. No more meetings. No desk. No clock-in small talk about weekend plans. I stopped talking about who I used to be. The people here knew me as Jack. That was enough. They didn't care about the life I left. And I didn't offer it. I kept to myself, mostly. Lived in a small cabin that smelled like cedar and would smoke. I read books I used to pretend to understand in college. I walked alone at dusk and listened to the world settle into sleep. Some nights I'd sit on the porch and just breathe. No phone. No noise. Just the stillness. And yeah, sometimes I thought about her. Not because I missed her, but because I had to remember why I left. Because it would have been so easy to go back at first. To answer one of the calls. To let her cry and explain and promise things would be different. But I knew better. Sometimes, leaving is the kindest thing you can do, for yourself. You don't have to scream. You don't have to burn bridges. You just have to walk away when someone shows you, finally, who they really are. And she did. Every night now, she goes to bed in that house, and it's quiet. The kind of quiet that scratches at the back of your mind. The kind that grows teeth the longer you try to ignore it. She fills it with music sometimes. Or podcasts. She leaves the TV on in the background, pretending the noise makes things feel normal. But it doesn't. Not really. Because at the end of the day, silence doesn't go away. It settles in. It takes root. And it reminds you, every single time you close your eyes, that the person you used to love walked out the door without a sound, and never looked back. It's been a year now. I don't mark the exact day, but my body remembers. The air starts to smell like the night I left, wet pavement, old summer heat giving up. The sun sinks a little earlier, and I catch myself looking at the tree line, thinking of the shadows that followed me out the door. Sometimes I wonder if she still lives in that house. Part of me thinks she sold it. Maybe she couldn't stand the memories. Or the silence. Maybe she packed everything up, told herself she was starting over, and found a new place with open windows and softer walls. But I don't think she did. I think she stayed. I think she walks through those rooms like a ghost. She probably rearranged the furniture, got rid of the couch we bought on a whim, the one we both hated but kept anyway. Maybe she painted over the scuffs on the hallway walls. Maybe she threw out the mugs I used every morning. But she couldn't erase everything. Some things sink too deep into the bones of a place. She's probably dated a few more times. Got her hair cut. Took a trip. Posted pictures with fake smiles and distant beaches. The kind of photos you upload not because you're happy, but because you want someone, anyone, to think you are. I don't follow her online. I don't have to. People still message me sometimes. Old friends. Acquaintances. Strangers who heard the story and think they know me. They say things like, "Good for you," or "You did the right thing," or "I wish I had the courage." I don't respond to most of them. Not because I don't appreciate it, but because they're talking about a version of me that doesn't exist anymore. The truth is, I didn't leave to prove a point. I left because I knew if I stayed, I'd disappear. Not all at once. Slowly. Quietly. The way people disappear in long relationships. When the laughter goes, when the touch fades, when the eyes don't meet the way they used to. I was already halfway gone when I heard her voice that night. I just didn't know it until then. Out here, life's smaller. Simpler. There's a woman who owns the general store who calls everyone sweetheart. There's a retired guy named Bill who teaches me how to tie proper knots and won't stop talking about fly fishing. There's a dog that shows up outside my porch some mornings like he owns the place. I call him Marvin. He doesn't seem to mind. Sometimes, when the wind is just right, I can hear the trees groan like old men settling into chairs. I like that. I like the weight of it. The honesty. I still carry what happened. Not like a wound. More like a scar that aches when the weather turns. But it's not pain, not really. It's memory. It's knowing that once, I loved someone who didn't love me back. Not in the way I needed. Not in the way that stayed. And that I had the strength to leave not because I stopped loving her, but because I finally started loving myself. The silence she lives with now? That's not punishment. It's truth. The kind that doesn't fade, doesn't forget, doesn't ask for forgiveness. It just is. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough. She never responded to the letter. Maybe she didn't know how. Maybe there was nothing left to say. And that's what stayed with her, not the words she said that night, but the ones she'd never get the chance to say now. The ones I wouldn't hear. She kept them to herself. They must have piled up in her throat like stones, too heavy to carry, too dangerous to throw. Regret has a way of folding itself into your life until you can't tell it apart from routine. I became that for her. Not a person anymore, just an ache she lived with. Out here, I started writing again. Nothing deep. Notes about trails. Sketches of trees. I even started a journal, something I swore I'd never do. One entry just read, "Some ghosts aren't people. Some are choices." I don't reread them. I just let the pages stack up like proof that I existed. That I was here. That I survived. I heard once that when a sound is loud enough, it keeps echoing forever, bouncing off walls, trapped in rooms. Maybe that's what I left behind. Not a goodbye. Not a scream. Just an echo she can't shut out. A reminder that I was listening. That I left. That silence isn't always absence. Sometimes it's the loudest thing there is. Every now and then I see couples at trailheads, arguing over maps, laughing at their own sweat. They remind me of us in our early years. Before resentment crept in. Before we learned how easy it is to stop hearing someone when they speak softly. I nod at them. Wish them better luck. This story doesn't end with some new woman saving me, or a perfect life waiting at the other side. It ends right here. Mijo. Me, gone but not lost. Me, finally at peace in a place where no one calls me back to who I was. I left without a sound. And in doing so, I finally heard myself.